A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, it is a period of foundations and magic. Heat makes fire, and the two worlds, earth and sky, exist through light, in this quietly resonant tale of a family's power struggles and all that it creates. From Suleiman Sise, a brightness carries through this gift to his home and the people that inhabit it, a gift of the past and a promise of a future.
Hello there, and welcome back to 6 Degrees of Star Wars, the podcast where we explore all the ways George Lucas's flagship franchise surrounds us, binds us, and penetrates us in the landscape of cinema. I'm your host, Sam Marchioni. Joining me today, Jasmine Garcia.
Man, I heard the fantasy in the 80s was weird, but this is ridiculous.
And for the very first time, a very special guest, Mr. Kyle Calgren.
Yay!
What's Star Wars?
Honestly, kind of a good way to live right now.
Yeah, it's people talk about Star Wars, don't they? Online, a lot.
Unfortunately, but we are here to talk about something that is only liminally connected to Star Wars. That is Suleiman Sise's 1987 film, Yeelen.
Greetings, I am IER60, Star Wars Retelling Connections. Point of intersection found. This is a degree 6. Michelle Malian was in dangerous liaison with Gavin Bouquet and Kay Coveney, who were in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and Celia Barnett, who was in The Force Awakens and Solo. Additional source material found. Yeelen is a retelling of Mali folklore and oral tradition.
But part of the reason I'm so glad that we have you on for this episode, Kyle, is because I know of Yeelen primarily from your channel, and you called it, I believe, an
Oedipally Harry Potter-esque bit of Star Warsian Tolkienish Karate Kidness. Joseph Campbell. It was the 80s.
I would not stand by that now, especially after watching the Maggie Mae Fish deconstruction of Joseph Campbell and his ideology and how much he projected Western culture onto everything else.
That makes sense.
I guess I touched that in the video because the Campbell framework is so limiting, and if you focus on its similarity to Western culture, to the monomyth, then you miss out on all the cultural subtleties that you would not be getting.
All the
I absolutely agree with you there, and even before I got to watching this movie, I was bugged by the fact that even the description of it on Canopy, where I was streaming it, calls it an Oedipal story, and I'm like, Oedipal where? In
Thank
that
you.
we have a father trying to kill his son because prophecy?
That's a vague connection, yes.
This aspect of it is very much my wheelhouse, I guess. But no, I didn't even read the description, to be honest, and it has been years since I watched that video, Kyle, because I wanted to go in.
It's been years since I made it. I didn't even watch my own video for this.
I did rewatch it, and you did have at least one other moment where you cursed George Lucas for the Nyamakola, meaning force handlers.
Yeah. Because good thing I looked this up. I found the one JSTOR article that I read to write that video. Because I made this back in the Channel Awesome days when there was absolutely no academic oversight in video essays at all. When we were still called reviewers and not video essayists. Yeah, Nyamakola or Nyamakala was translated in this article by Suzanne H. McRae, entitled Yeelen, A Political Fable of the Como Blacksmith Sorcerers, as force handler. There's also a Wikipedia entry, Nyamakala, which describes Nyamakala as a caste throughout West Africa, particularly among the Mandinka people, which can refer to essentially a professional, anyone who can work the forces of nature. So that includes Jelly, the griots, as well as blacksmiths, carpenters, weavers, specialized singers.
Okay.
It's kind of like a medieval guild, in
Yeah,
Europe, I guess
guess.
would be the quickest,
Yeah.
the easiest.
It certainly did
Yeah.
feel that way during that one scene where they're all sitting around talking shit about Nyan
Ugh, these
but
kids.
like going back to that Western framework, it was kind of interesting to me because part of the reason I started this podcast was to force myself to expand my cinematic horizons outside my comfort zone by using something very in my comfort zone. The very flawed logic of, oh, you liked X in this Star Wars thing, maybe you'll like it in this other thing, which is how I ended up watching a Polish mermaid movie musical that's... I will never get over the lure.
The lure
Nor should
fucking
you.
rocks.
The Lord does fucking rock. Thank you, Kyle.
It
It's
fucking
fantastic.
rocks, but it also fucks with my mind.
Right?
That's what it's supposed to do.
But, you know, that's why we're here.
Mhm.
I'm trying to use the familiar to explore that which is unfamiliar to me.
Mhm.
And that becomes a double-edged sword in trying to talk about this movie, because this might be a lexicon that I picked up from you, Kyle, but as I was taking notes, I was trying very hard not to call this movie things like deliberate or a rumination on, because the subtext is boring. I don't want to say that I was bored during this movie, but it's a very quiet movie in more ways than one.
It is.
You know, somebody on Letterboxd kind of put it best, where it's just like, yeah, I just prefer my fantasy to be a bit more bombastic than this. And I was like, that's what it is. This is a fantasy film that is so much quieter than what we're used to in the genre, at least here in the West. And I would definitely say I wasn't bored, because I was honestly fascinated by it, just kind of trying to parse together how I felt about this as I went on.
Yeah, you're right. It is a very different tradition of filmmaking, and there are different, priorities and things. I guess fantasy, again, taking in a Western context, it would mean something very different for, someone in Mali telling this fable, which has been orally passed down. I don't know if I'm even right here. I am speaking out of my ass. Cut all of this. I'm an ignorant Westerner. We all are.
Ditto, yeah.
Well, I mean, the only other point of reference I really have at this point is one of my friends who is biracial and Nigerian. She loves having us watch Nigerian horror movies at Halloween. So last year we watched a Netflix series called Blood Sisters that was made in Nigeria. Absolutely wild. I don't think it technically falls under the Nollywood umbrella, but it is somewhat in that vein in terms of being just absolutely wild in its plots, twists, and turns. And part of this might just be my autism talking of I need background audio to stim, and so while it is beautiful to watch some of the landscape shots going by, I'm like,
it's so quiet.
It's too quiet.
Where's the score?
My brain needs something to think about. I'm suddenly trying to think about, like, do I need to look up every single name that's been invoked? What does this mean? What does that mean? Because I think that's another problem for me, is ignorant Westerner. I really want to understand this movie, and there's not a lot of context. Like, I tried looking up...
This needs an audio commentary.
Mythology, and I didn't get a lot.
Yeah, and when you Google it, there's not a lot of scholarship on it, too, so it's just like, damn.
Or at least not a lot of English scholarship.
Yes.
Very widely written about in French, and you can tie that back to, like, Mali's history as a French colony.
Yeah.
And, in fact, I believe Suleiman Sisse studied in France, didn't he?
I thought it was the USSR.
You're right. Yes, I'm wrong.
But this did get a very good reception in France, or at least at Cannes. It won the jury prize there.
That's true, yeah. But regardless of our lack of cultural context, we can at least try to talk about it, because, I mean, the story itself is pretty simple. So much so that I guess I get why the monomyth got into discussions of it, but to be honest, it kind of feels like it veers off of the monomyth too much for me to really think it is an example of it.
Selective word choice can be very helpful there.
True.
Yeah. And Joseph Campbell was problematic in many ways.
Oh, I'm sure.
We can get past Joseph Campbell. I think we have evolved past the need for Joseph Campbell.
Hell yes. But basically, this guy's dad wants to kill him because prophecy, and he's going on a journey to figure out a way to confront him, more or less. That is like the barest of bones of it.
With his magic log.
Yes.
Well, the father has the magic log. The son
Yes.
doesn't get the magic log until later. Honestly, I feel like you could have. I get why it's not the whole movie, but I could have just watched a movie of his exploits when he's with the Fulani, or the Fula, as they're sometimes called. I came across a couple of different names for them.
Yeah, in French they're Peul, Peul, and I think that's how it's translated in the French subtitles when I first watched
That
it.
was how I saw it in the Canopy subtitles,
Speaking
which were
of,
very hard to read sometimes.
Yeah.
yeah, they were needed some outlining on some of those letters, but also speaking of the subtitles, I did kind of love how, in the scene where he's first being interpreted, there is slight variations there. It's just like, oh, the layers of translation. I always love it when pieces of art do that. Like there's this one poem, I think it's called The Mermaid, like it has half of it in Spanish, half of it in English, and it translates completely differently on either
Ooh.
side. Like specifically, like the mermaid's like brought onto land, and in the English version she's saying thank you, thank you, thank you. But if you actually translate the Spanish, it's just, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, very good poem. I'll have to see if I can find it, but it's just like it goes to show how flawed the mere act of translation is. And so it's just like, oh my god, what else are we missing because of the flawed act of translating these languages into English?
There's an old story I once heard about a Sam Peckinpah movie that was released in France. War movie, World War II movie. There's a scene where a soldier gets up on a hill and shouts to his fellow soldiers, "Tanks! Tanks! Tanks!" The captions, "Merci! Merci! Merci!"
Très bien. Très amusant.
But yeah, this is a journey. This is an epic journey through multiple cultures. And if I remember correctly, that was partly, a reflection of Malian culture at the time, because the primary ethnic group was
Yeah.
Bambara, with a major Fulani population, the Dogon as well, and many, many others that are not represented in this.
Yeah, it
movie.
is interesting to see, especially the uncle, Jigui, he refers to them as the country sometimes, but you also see references to tribes and nations, which I, again, being a Westerner, I connected that back kind of to how the First Nations exist here on Turtle Island, where those words have been used interchangeably in ways that they shouldn't be, but that's me talking out of my ass about stuff that isn't my area of expertise again. But I was really interested in that because I noticed as I was double checking some information that this is technically regarded as an Afrofuturist film.
I did see that, yeah, and
Yeah.
I found that interesting.
Despite being set in the past, in this mythic past. But then again, isn't Western fantasy also kind of, it has that same atemporality. It's that same, once upon a timeness. That same, this could be happening right now.
Yeah, it certainly can feel like there's a group of old men who are sitting in a room complaining about the young generation and how they're doing everything wrong.
I mean,
And
that's what
the younger generation is like, what did we do?
That is what they have been doing since the beginning of time, unfortunately.
Do they even grow avocados in Mali? How can they have avocado toast then?
No!
I don't believe they do, no.
Also, I can't believe this is the second movie in a row on this podcast where I had to write in my notes, no, not the puppy!
Yeah, that was, woof.
Even before that, the chicken that was set on fire in the second shot.
That was the thing they made us watch.
I wrote in my notes, this must be a very valuable chicken if you are asking this much of your god for it.
True. Yeah, but
I mean, I assume a chicken is a valuable commodity given that chicken gives you eggs and meat.
but still, it really does make me wonder how much of this is like genuine magical practices from this area, how much of it was just for the movie, Again, so much cultural context we're missing.
Yeah.
I did manage to find one source that seems genuinely academic and cites its sources and says that albinism is used within Bambara culture for sacrifices. I will be including that in the notes of this episode so that people can take a look at it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like there is a lot of discrimination against those with albinism in a lot of African cultures, unfortunately. I'm sure we've done some fuck shit about it too, so what do I know?
I could follow this story relatively well, and I think what it is that it works best as like a series of vignettes. But it's a little harder to draw like a through line that makes me feel like there's forward momentum. Like, I loved Nyanonkaro's mother when she was introduced. Like,
yeah, no, I liked that she
had some spunk to her.
Yeah, I liked that she was his first source of wisdom. Like, you don't see that in a lot of fantasy in general. Usually the mom's just there to probably die.
Disney fantasy, definitely.
Blame the Grimm brothers for that one.
I'm trying to remember. I believe the last we saw of her was that she was in that very beautiful riverbed scene and pouring what looks like milk over herself, offering a prayer to a
Lots
river
of milk
god.
imagery in this movie.
Yeah, a lot of milk. They share milk. They bond over milk. Cattle is very important there.
Which, I mean, it's life-sustaining, so it kind of makes sense as she's praying for her son's life. It makes a certain amount of sense.
Mother's milk.
Yeah. Although that does kind of make me disappointed that she then disappears from the movie, especially when we get into the introduction of Atu, the king's wife.
Yeah, I have problems.
With the whole story where he cures her fertility and then the sex happens and then,
She's basically there to cry for like 50% of her screen time.
And a scene where we watch her showering rather intently.
She's a very lovely looking woman. I'll say that. I can't say I blame them, but
I might have bonded to her more than other characters because she seems to be one of the few characters who's breaking a generally stoic vibe.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying any of the performances are bad, but everybody has a very business-like attitude for the most part, and the main outliers are Atu, who's primarily forced into crying, and then that one scene of the Nyamakola who are complaining about the kids these days.
We should have done the reading.
Yeah.
I tried to do the reading, and no, you're right. The egg is on my face. It is cooking along with the chicken that Soma decided needed to be sacrificed.
Like, I wanted to write more notes, but obviously, like, there's only so much you could do when you're trying to keep up with the subtitles.
There was something interesting, though. Have both of you seen The Woman King by Gina Prince Bythewood?
Yes.
Yeah. John Boyega,
Viola Davis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lashana Lynch. Yep. I enjoyed it.
There's a scene when the Fulani are facing off against that invading tribe. Mm-hmm. They're both like fighting via pressing their foreheads together. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me of a similar scene in The Woman King that involved Lashana Lynch's character and another member of the Agoje having like a spear between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering now if that was a deliberate reference or if this is a cultural practice in a lot of parts of West Africa.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, The Woman King took place in Dahomey, modern-day Benin, which is quite a few miles south of where this movie is set. This is like all interior Western Africa, all desert and savanna. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean there is no cultural connection. But then again, I don't know.
Oh, and hey, rare pro-hyena propaganda in this.
Can we talk about that mask?
We do talk about that mask, I think.
I liked it. I liked the hyena in general. I think that actor might have also been one of the Nyamakola because his laugh sounded very distinctively familiar.
It wouldn't surprise
me. Like the same actor?
Yeah. But I liked the hyena. It's a fun performance, I think, because of the mask, and the actor has to put more oomph into his voice.
Because of the mask. Mm-hmm. And also it's just a little more fun. Even if a part of you is just like, okay.
Can I confess something? I first heard about this movie through 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. That hack book series. It was under one of the... it was listed as a fantasy. And I thought, hey, an African fantasy movie. That seems interesting. And then, it is a very deeply culturally complex movie. with a lot of nuance that I still do not get.
For sure.
That doesn't necessarily mean, even if you don't get it, that it's a total wash. Like, I'm interested now. I want to learn more about Bambara culture. Like, I was trying to look up the names of the deities that it invoked. Soma specifically invokes Mari, but I haven't been able to find someone with that name in the limited English resources, so I think maybe that's another French thing, like the French calling the Fulani Pelou.
Maybe.
French, why are you like this as a language? Je n'aime pas.
I mean, I feel like us as English speakers have no room to talk. We are speaking a language that basically just mugged all the other languages in a dark alleyway, and then put on a trench coat.
Yes, but we are the inheritors of French to some degree, so we get to throw a little shade.
Fair enough. That is true.
Thank you, William the Conqueror. Thank you? I don't know.
No.
It was a while ago.
Casse-toi is what I would go with, but there is one really good line that I loved so much I had to make sure I wrote it down, and that is, "Science is inexhaustible, miracles eternal."
That was lovely,
which is said when they get to the Dogon.
Yeah.
And I think that might be one of the closer thesis statements for the movie. Because the way I took it, science is inexhaustible means, yes, you can relentlessly search down every explanation for every single thing for the rest of forever, but allowing yourself the miracles that come from magic or storytelling have an even greater staying power. Which I think is what was Cissé's intention in trying to create this cultural preservation for the people of Mali.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, thinking about it being labeled Afrofuturism, like the one scene that really struck me was towards the end where basically they unfold, hey, this is everything shitty that is going to happen to our culture, but our descendants will still go on to do great things.
Yeah, it is reaching back to this mythic past to create this, nation that existed before the nation.
Then there is also very silly stuff, like, at no point did I realize that the pylon was going to talk, or I don't remember if it was the pylon or the Kore wing that talked, but right before the big blinding flash of light at the end, one of the big magic wooden things just takes a couple minutes to yell at Soma. And I'm like, oh!
Deservedly so.
Yeah, deserved, but unexpected.
It's a miracle.
Yeah,
and they're eternal.
You brought it back.
Also, we have gone like half an hour and we haven't even talked about probably the craziest line in the movie, and honestly, I commend us all.
Remind me.
We all know that it's coming, but
my penis betrayed me. That's
penis betrayed me.
That's certainly a way of justifying yourself, sure.
That's a phrase. That's a way of saying it.
Right? Like, we've been talking so seriously about this, but it is a movie in which that is a line. Like,
but he says it so sincerely and truthfully, and so regretfully.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the implication is that he didn't intend to sleep with her. And honestly, the whole thing reads like a comedy to me when I think the intention is to realize, oh, the problem wasn't with Atu. The problem's with the king.
Yeah.
And that's why he's like, okay, she has to go, you have to go.
Yeah. Which, in fairness, there's historical precedent for that sort of thing.
Lovely. We're not asking her what she wants, but
nope, exactly.
That's imposing my own
fair enough, but
modern day perspective on it.
That's fair, but also, yeah, she tries so hard to find some agency by the end, if only to save him. And even that, she doesn't. They're just like, nope, no agency for you. You're just gonna carry my son. I don't know.
Again, really feel like the mother could have been there for a little moral support. But...
And that would have been nice.
You can do that in the remake.
Oh!
Let's do it. Put out some money, get it to a Malian Film Fund, remake this movie with CGI and...
I'll admit, I could not help but think, okay, how would this translate in a fantasy film that would feel more like a typical fantasy film? But on the other hand, am I the devil for thinking that?
Well, I'm not saying like do it as a Western style Hollywood fantasy film. I'm saying
God, no. Keep it away from us.
I'm saying maybe the African film industries in general, from Mali to Nigeria to what are the other? Uganda has a big film industry, I think, right? They could use bigger budgets.
Absolutely. Yeah, because this had the budget of like a ham sandwich and some scotch tape.
I imagine a ham sandwich
I
would be
still think
pretty
they pull it
expensive
off.
in that area of the world.
Yeah, probably not. But, and yeah, no, I'm not saying it's a bad movie at all. I think it's a fascinating movie, but yeah, it's like, this might be the lowest budget fantasy I've ever seen in my life.
Well, so much of it comes from, being in the landscape itself. And
Yeah, and it is gorgeous. Like, I
It's
love
so
these shots.
beautiful.
And it's nice to see African landscapes being portrayed as gorgeous, because they are.
yeah, I guess one of the reasons this could be called Afrofuturist is because it presents an Africa devoid of colonialism, or like pre-colonial.
Yeah.
Pre-colonial, definitely. It foreshadows colonialism, but it's
yeah.
presenting these rituals that existed before any European influence.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, they out and out say, yeah, we're going to be dealing with some awful things, but our people will still go on and still be able to do great things in spite of that. I would say that definitely takes at least a little bit from the ideals of Afrofuturism, and that no, our people are still going to go on. I mean, I'm speaking as I'm like a quarter black at most, so I really should not be speaking authoritatively about it, but
Well, I think that could maybe tie back to the notion that miracles are eternal.
yeah.
Endurance like that is a miracle. It's a miracle that shouldn't have had to happen, but it did happen.
Indeed.
There was one point where did they swap actors on Soma, or was there another uncle? I feel like there's a scene where
There's
the
two
two
uncles.
people who are okay, there are two uncles.
Yeah,
I
there's two
wasn't
uncles.
sure about that.
I was a little confused myself. It's just like, wait, I thought he was trying to find his uncle to help him, but this uncle seems mad at him too. So I thought it was supposed to be like, at first I thought it was like an irony thing, but then he runs into his other uncle's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense.
It was also confusing because the father and one of the uncles are played by the same actor, but then one of the uncles isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you're smarter than this, Sam. You can do this. And then I come to acknowledge, no, I am not smarter than this. I am a dumb.
No dumber than your average Westerner about this, I'm sure.
I liked the part where there was brightness, like in the title.
Yeah.
It ends with brightness.
It does indeed.
That's what Yeelen means.
It's a beautiful shot. Like that 6-pointed lens flare, that's fucking beautiful. And I really liked the bit at the beginning, the runes that go Gonia ta Diefla, heat makes fire, and the two worlds, earth and sky, exist through light.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I think, a really cool way to make this like a cyclical story.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Not to make circle of life illusions.
I'm sure it's hard for some people who watch this and see that that shot with the sun.
Yes.
I'm sure it's very hard. I managed to not do it, and I think I deserve at least a little credit for that.
Yeah. Honestly, I had a harder time suppressing my inner Peter Jackson music every time there was a pan across a landscape of Nyankaro and Atu walking.
Okay, I guess I see it. I would say
It's
that's
beautiful landscapes.
It would be weirder if this, African movie set in this pre-colonial setting had a full orchestra with brass and strings.
That is true, I guess.
You're right. My autistic brain cannot handle the quiet. If I'm doing anything and there's no background noise, I'm alone with my thoughts, and that can't happen.
But yeah, speaking of the cyclical nature, why is that word so hard for me? But speaking of that the fact that his son does keep on kind of popping up before we know that's who he is, I thought that was kind of neat.
It took me until the second watch to realize, oh, that's his son the entire time.
Yeah, it took me until the end to get, oh, that's what's happening here. Oh, that's nice. I like that. I like it when movies do that.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little confusing at first, but then you realize who the kid is, like, oh. And again, they keep going on even though heroic sacrifice happened, which I'll admit I did not expect. I did not expect that.
Yeah. I feel really bad that I see those eggs and all I can think about is the fact that my grandfather had a hollowed out ostrich egg My grandfather has gone on a lot of hunting trips. He's for the purpose of keeping prey animal populations at a controlled level.
Fair enough.
I can't see ostrich eggs without thinking of Teddy Perkins anymore.
What?
Teddy Perkins.
I don't think I know that reference.
He is a character in Atlanta in one episode of the show Atlanta.
Oh, the Donald Glover whiteface character.
Yes.
I'll admit, I've only seen a couple of episodes of Atlanta. I know I need to watch more.
Imagine Childish Gambino dressed as a version of Michael Jackson. A very thinly veiled version of Michael Jackson who lives alone in his house and, like, eats a raw ostrich egg.
Okay.
It's a weird show.
So getting back to Yeelen and scary
right,
things.
ostrich eggs. That's where we got on that. Okay.
We were at ostrich eggs, but now we're talking about scary things, and I just have to say, bees that I cannot see, that scares me way more than bees I can see.
Lots of Letterboxd reviews have not the bees jokes just because of this.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Easy effect to pull off. Just put bee noises on the soundtrack and have your actors act them out.
Yep.
I mean, I do appreciate in the build up to it. Again, I'm of two minds because on the one hand, my brain is like, this is so slow and deliberate and quiet. I hate it. But on the other hand, my brain is like, this is so deliberate and loving and showing the details of this, like, sorcery. I love it.
I love how simple, like, the effect, like, again, this was a very, very bare bones fantasy, and so the ways that they get around the fact that we can't visualize magic in a way that even fantasy movies in the West were doing at the time, I just love the way they portrayed it. Like, literally just walking backwards was enough for it.
It reminds me, there's an Afrocentric tabletop system that's been crowdfunding recently.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, though. I reposted that a couple of times.
It is called Kalimba. It was written by Daniel Peraza, and you can still late pledge to the Kickstarter, which I am including in the link for the show notes.
Yeah, no, I had forgotten all about that till you mentioned it. Because it seemed like such a cool system.
I mean, it was partially on my brain because as a gestating dice goblin, every time I saw the core, I went close up on the shiny rocks and like, ooh, sparkle rock. I am a child. I am a very tall child with very stupid hobbies.
Aren't we all?
Listen, a decent adulthood was stolen from us. This is all we have.
That is true. We should go on a quest against our fathers.
Honestly.
And blind them with the big stick.
Okay, but what animal are you turning into? What animal are you turning into?
Well, I'm pretty sure the animals that they turned into, like, they're symbolic of, like, old versus new. The old, because elephants live a long time, they symbolize longevity.
Yep.
Right.
And so the hungry lion is, like, what comes after it. I think that's what they were going for. But anyway, to answer your question, I would turn into hippo. They're dangerous. They are dangerous.
They are.
I would want to turn into a hippo. I would win in a fight with a hippo.
You would win
As a
that
hippo.
fight.
I wouldn't fight as a hippo. I phrased that wrong. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I would probably turn into a stoat. I am an invasive species. I am hyperactive, and I do not think I would last that long.
Oh no. I mean, there's a part of me that is still my inner 8-year-old, and cheetahs were her favorite animal, but I don't think that's gonna work.
So anyway, welcome to our podcast about the Animorphs.
The Animorphs are also fighting a fascism.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So it still works.
The Brain Slug Empire.
I missed the Animorphs craze. Today is apparently about proto-YA series that I just missed. I missed that, so the more I hear about it from adults that did read it, the more I'm like, wait, what?
I mean, I was technically within the age range for it, but I missed it in favor of reading other books.
I read them all.
My thing was
the body
cover
horror
scared me too much.
Oh, the body horror in the books is even worse.
So I've heard.
Yeah.
So I think it would have probably broken my little scaredy cat brain.
Yeah. There's one book where a girl turns into a starfish, gets cut in half, and then both halves of the starfish morph back into her.
Oh my god!
Ah,
Yep.
I mean, after that, I'll take turning into a lion and then into an ostrich egg after a blinding flash of light.
but no, that is the ending.
Mhm.
Turning into animals instead of the start of your problems, I guess.
He became a king. He became a lion king.
God damn it, Disney.
How is it that me? I have been avoiding making the Disney references, Kyle. How?
My brain is just as broken as yours.
Fair enough.
It's not my fault Walt Disney colonized all our minds.
Yeah,
Mm.
it is not. I know. God damn it.
I'm looking at my notes, and mostly it's just me being a snarky bitch.
And we don't want to be too
Like-
snarky about this.
Like, at one point, I wrote in my notes, pretty sure Mari isn't listening, asshole, because I think it was the third or fourth scene of Soma and his two people walking around with the pylon,
Mhm.
and he's calling out those invocations to help him find Nyankro, and I'm like,
I think we're allowed
I
to be.
don't think he's listening.
I think we're allowed
I-
to be snarky about Soma. He's a terrible father.
Yeah.
He is a
Yeah.
terror, as they put it. And how?
Yeah, let's not be snarky. This is a great movie. Absolutely watch it, and you may get something more than we got from it.
I don't want to discount that we got nothing from this movie. I think all of us are trying to approach this as cautiously
Mhm.
and respectfully as we can because we are aware we're coming from a culturally dominant position.
And a
Mhm.
place of ignorance, for that matter.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we are treading lightly.
I mean, even when I did that video of mine ages ago, I was trying to tread lightly, and I'm worried that I spoke with too much authority on that.
I did go back and watch it, and I will concede that the age shows in places, but
Oh, yeah.
I do think it was what started you on a more thoughtful period of your content that let you dive deeper into stuff and look more at cinema as a creation of identity rather than just riffing on art house films the way others were. And I appreciate that video because it also, I think, was a turning point for me in how I looked at film. So that was part of why I wanted you on here to say thank you for introducing me to this film and for getting me to think about film in a better way.
Thanks.
Yeah, because it was definitely around a transitional period. Because we've both been following you for a very long time. So
Yeah. I've been doing this for
So,
a very
yeah.
long time. Woof.
sorry,
No, it's cool. I'm just old.
you're not that much older than me, I don't think. But anyway,
I think we're all kind of feeling our age because of just looking at this movie that is now almost 40 years old.
Yep.
And it feels like it's from another time and yet timeless. Like, I think about some of the other movies we've talked about where we'll be like, this movie feels timeless, except for the cell phones, which dated immediately.
yes.
But this movie feels timeless partially because it has to, out of the necessity that comes from limiting its budget, but it also, I don't want to frame it in the monomyth that dominates so much of Western culture, but
Yeah.
it feels accessible. I guess I would actually like to borrow a phrase that Robin Thede uses for talking about a Black Lady sketch show, which is a very funny show.
Mhm.
She said she set out to make that show culturally specific but universally funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember
And-
that, and that I'd say she succeeded.
She succeeded with that show, and I think that this kind of embodies that same thing, and it's a template that more films should go with, to be culturally specific but accessible. And cultural specificity is accessible.
Yeah. And like, as much as we've said that there's so much cultural context we're missing, at the end of the day, this is the story of a man trying to prove himself and a shitty dad, which there's tons of stories about that.
Oh, yeah. And also, the visuals are so luminous and specific and are easier to watch and take in than describe on a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
kind of the downside of trying to talk about this on a purely audible medium.
Agreed. Like I said, I watched this on Canopy. I think there actually is a version of this on YouTube to be watched as well.
I found that
I'm
there are
an
no
advocate for
subtitles.
watching it on Canopy so that people in the library system will
Yes.
see that it's gaining traction.
Yeah, absolutely. Canopy is a great service. Thank you, Osceola Library.
Thank you, libraries.
Yes, libraries in general. Libraries are great.
They should have the budget that cops have.
Hell yes.
Hell yeah. More funding to the arts and humanities, and
Mm-hmm.
I suppose that means it is as good a time as any to ask, is the Force with it?
I'd say so, yes. I'm glad I saw it. And hopefully I'll be able to dig up more cultural context that will make me appreciate it even more. But yeah, very pretty, very visually stunning. And yeah, universal in its specificity. That's also a hard word.
It's the sibilants that are tricking you up. It's the sibilants.
We're trying so hard to sound so smart, and we're doing so badly.
Movie good.
Exactly.
Movie good.
Movie is indeed very good.
I think the Force is with it, even though it is very un-Star Wars. It is Star Warsian in the sense that it was shot in an African desert, partially.
If I had a nickel. I will say it is unanimous, which means we are all Sith dealing in absolutes. The Force is with it.
Fine,
Huzzah.
where's my red saber then?
You have to go out and make your own red saber, Jasmine. You know how this works.
I'm actually not sure you do, because it turns red, right, and you turn evil, right?
It's a hotly debated thing that you do not want to get into, Kyle. Trust me.
Oh.
I'm not paying $200 to Disney World to build my own lightsaber. I'm sorry.
That wasn't even what I was talking about, but fair enough. Who has something they would like to plug?
You can see my stuff at Kyle Calgren BHH. I have a video that's debuting this Sunday, actually. I'm talking about comic book movies.
Oh, that doesn't ever invite controversy.
Yeah, I'm counting down the top 20 comic book movies of all time. It's probably going to be out by the time this podcast drops, but yes.
As for me, I am Faye Riviera on all the socials, including Letterboxd, because I'm addicted now. And of course, I am the host of the sister podcasts, Any Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new. Kyle was on our most recent episode on My Own Private Idaho as of this recording.
Yes, that was fun. Way more gay sex in that one. But also a lot of deserts.
Also true. Lots of deserts in this podcast family lately.
As for me, I will ask that you keep the spirit of Star Wars alive by supporting artists through the Entertainment Community Fund, and by taking action to support anti-imperial and anti-colonial movements across the globe, partially by using links provided below, and by taking action in your community. And you can find me on the wider internet as La Femme Fictionale, including on YouTube, Twitter, and Tumblr, where you can also find the blog for this show. Our theme music is provided by Refractory Period, the two girls' one-beat synth-pop sensation. You can follow them on Instagram at Refractory Period the band. To further support this podcast, please subscribe to us on your platform of choice, leave reviews, consider joining Patreon, and share with your friends to boost our visibility. To further support this podcast, please subscribe to us on your platform of choice, leave reviews, and share with your friends to boost our visibility. And consider joining Patreon, where you can get early access to our bi-weekly recaps of The Acolyte as it airs. And now it's time to turn to the Chance Cube to decide where our journey takes us next.
Before I get to rolling this little thing, Jazz, you have hit 10 guest appearances on this podcast, which means you have an opportunity to pick the next degree we cover, 1 through 6, though not the movie specifically. You're only going to get one chance to do this before you ascend to a higher role within the podcast order, so do you want to use it now, or do you want to wait?
I think I'll wait for now, but that's good to know. I gotta think about this.
Alrighty then.
That is a 4.
That is a 4, which means next on the list... Ooh, finally. I know we've been waiting on this one for a while. It's Nimona.
Ooh.
Oh, I love
exciting.
Nimona.
I still haven't seen it, so thank you for potentially giving me an excuse to watch.
It's so good.
I've heard nothing but good things.
I cry thinking about it. It's just...
Oh.
It is a dagger to the
Spoiling
heart.
your next video, Kyle.
Huh?
We'll see you all next time. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, stay beautiful, and may the Force be with you.